What's up, everybody? It's Greg with Delta, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur, and we bring on guest speakers. Today, we've got the honor and pleasure of welcoming Mr. Reid Garrett. Reid, how are you, sir?
I am good, and thank you so much for having me on today. I already love the positive energy you're kicking things off with. Looking forward to the conversation, my friend.
Absolutely. So just so everyone knows, before we even jumped in, he came in with a ton of positive energy, just excited. So this is going to be a great podcast. Hope you guys are ready. For those of you that don't know who Reid is, Reid trains the future entrepreneur business owners of America. As an adjunct professor at Case Western Reserve University, he teaches entrepreneurship through acquisition, invests in entrepreneurial business owners, is a board member, and is an award-winning paid keynote speaker. Reid co-created the curriculum for the Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition course at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, lectures at leading academic institutions such as Dartmouth, the University of Chicago, the University of California, and BYU, and serves on the University of Chicago Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition Advisory Committee. His expertise is derived from 16 years of successful on-the-ground entrepreneurial business ownership experience, acquiring, opening, growing, and selling 4 companies in addition to his academic research. Reid achieved a return multiple of invested capital, or MOIC, of over 10 times on his most recent acquisition and was a top-performing Anytime Fitness franchisee. Reid has worked with the leading brands such as Harley-Davidson, the Milwaukee Bucks, John Deere, Tough Mudder, and Microsoft, and has been featured in publications including the Wall Street Journal and Crain's Chicago. Reid is a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley in 2006, the University of Chicago School of Business in 2015, and is a doctoral researcher at Case Western in 2026. Is doing a PhD dissertation of entrepreneurship through acquisition, where he presents his research at academic conferences. As an Eagle Scout, Ironman 140.6 distance triathlete, winning endurance athlete, and a graduate of the National Outdoors Leadership School, Reid rejuvenates in the outdoors and is a perpetual state of planning his next life adventure, which recently entailed racing up the world's tallest staircase in Switzerland, in addition, an around-the-world trip. Reid is well-positioned to help business owners in waiting experience the autonomy of entrepreneurial business ownership. Wow, bro.
Wow, man, you read the entire thing. That's like all my life in a nutshell right there. But what I always try to tell people is, one, I just want to grow up and be like you. But secondly, I've just been blessed enough that I've had the experience recently of living my American dream. I bought and sold a business, became a multimillionaire because of that. I got to then go and race up what I think is one of the coolest endurance events in the world. There's a race up the world's tallest staircase in Switzerland. And now I get to, help other people achieve their American dream. And I'm just super stoked to be here today with you to chat about how we can enable your audience to take steps forward in their life. So thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. So Reid, tell me, how did it start off? Like, when did you start becoming an entrepreneur? When did you get the bug, and when did you make the decision to jump forward and be like, man, I want to work for myself, or I want to take this unknown path and journey?
Interestingly enough, I was working in finance in San Francisco. I went to UC Berkeley undergrad, and I'd gotten a pretty cool internship that I flipped into a good job in finance. So I was 23 years old, okay? Blessed to be able to have $100,000 in the bank, but I was deal sourcing, playing around on spreadsheets. And I realized, I'm like, hey, I don't really like this, and I'm okay at it, but I'm not all into it, right? So then, power of being around people. I was at happy hour at San Francisco's second oldest bar, a place called the Old Ship Saloon. It's kind of cool. Like outside the bar, there's a mast of a ship that sunk in 1851 in the gold rush. So pretty cool place. Talking to 2 private equity pros, they were looking at acquiring franchisors, but in doing that diligence, they looked at how these individual franchise units were doing. Anytime Fitness was a concept, and these things could, put in $250,000 and make 10, 15K a month in cash flow. At that point, I knew I wanted to be more hands-on. I was just bored of sitting behind being the spreadsheet jockey. I didn't study engineering at Berkeley, unfortunately. I wasn't going to go out and start the next Facebook. Didn't have that tech background, but I knew I wanted more freedom, right? I wanted to work for myself. I wanted that autonomy. And I was introduced to the idea of franchising, which is just a way of thinking about lower risk entrepreneurship and business ownership by these 2 private equity pros. Then I went out and plenty of trials and tribulations we can talk about, but I became a multi-unit Anytime Fitness owner operator in the Central Valley, and then correlate that to some, additional success thereafter. So I think about entrepreneurship, there's a variety of routes to go. One cool route to go, which has enabled a lot of success and fulfillment, and so much of fulfillment's about the relationships in life, right, which we can talk about, has come from entrepreneurial business ownership. And I got into that through franchising 16 years ago, because starting a business is risky, right? You can talk about the statistics of failures. Buying an existing concept or buying into a franchise concept simply lowers that risk. You can still have that same autonomy, that freedom, and that upside. And you do it right, follow the steps in a book that I wrote, grititdone.com, then you can make the journey low risk, relatively alternatives. So I'm happy as a clam. I think this is a great path for a lot of people. Certainly not the right path for everybody. Owning a business, as you well know and your listeners can relate to, is going to be a ton of work and is not risk-free at all, but it's just a fantastic opportunity to at least consider doing. And I'm just happy to help enable people down that journey.
So that franchise that you did was $500,000 upfront, and then once it got going, then you said it was $10,000 to $15,000.
No, it was, and this was 2007. So this is right before the financial crisis, when lending markets were really loose, right?
Okay.
So the total cost to open a club, one of these Anytime Fitness clubs back in the day, it was like $250,000 for everything: working capital, equipment, leasehold improvements, you name it. But the actual out-of-pocket, you could actually finance most of that or get the landlords to pay for part of it. The out-of-pocket was actually significantly lower.
Okay.
So I was able to put my own equity into it and ultimately partner with those two individuals for the very first club, though not future ones. And we can talk about the fun part of that, as I learned, what it took to run a business and think about site selection and all those fun things that you only learn when you're in the trenches.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was low cost and very high profit.
Yeah. Okay. So you first jump in through doing your entrepreneurship through doing franchising, and you catch the bug, you keep going. Where's that transition where you start to buy other businesses, or you create your own business from scratch?
Yeah. So, it really comes down to the idea of loneliness, something that, people talk a lot about, and it's present in society.
Mm-hmm.
When I was running these clubs, I had the franchisor, and they're fantastic, and I had my fellow network of club owners and, other business owners, which was fun. But what I didn't do then, which I did later, and I think my life might have turned out not better, but just differently, is I always coach people. It's critical to find your peer group when you're searching for like a business to buy, or when you're actually operating a business. Because when I had those fitness clubs, I caught a case of what I'll call lonely owner syndrome. I had a number of clubs. I was doing well financially, but I felt lonely, and I didn't have a really strong network to think about other things I could have uniquely done in the situation I was in. So what I decided to do is go to business school at the University of Chicago. I wanted to travel, meet some new people, have some cool new experiences, figure out the next best thing. I like business school. It was a great experience, and I recommend it for people if it makes sense. And then in business school, having gone there, been a successful business owner, I still kept kept the club. I got involved in this thing called Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition right when it was taking hold at Chicago Booth, which is, great business school, one of the top business schools in the world. And because I've been a business owner and I knew about Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, the idea of buying something existing, because I'd done it with a franchise and I knew the people that had just done it as practitioners. When Booth decided to take this initiative on, the timing was just so fortuitous because I was there and I knew a little bit about it. So I ran the student group, planned a big conference on it with the support of the school that still goes on to this day, 11 years later. So fun to have watched it grow on. And then more importantly, I got to be the teaching assistant for a first-time class that Booth taught on this by these two awesome, highly successful adjunct professors. And it was through that I became more inspired to go out and then buy a Main Street business, run it, grow it, try to sell it. And then what I really wanted to do, because these guys inspired me so much, was go back and become a professor and teach others how to do it. So again, it all goes back to the power of the people that you know and the networking, because I got into this whole endeavor with two private equity pros that I knew in San Francisco, and I got inspired to level up my performance in it by two individuals who I ultimately was a TA for, and inspired me to go out and do it. So went to business school, went out, bought an industrial services business, bought it, grew it, ran it, grew it, whole 9 yards, sold to a private equity backed strategic. And now I'm helping other people do similar stuff. And we can talk about some of the roles some of the methods that takes right now.
Yeah, definitely. So this sounds a lot like, have you ever heard of Cody Sanchez?
Yeah, she's fantastic.
This sounds a lot like Cody Sanchez, when she talks about like buying born businesses and stuff like that. Is that basically same concept?
Yeah, same general concept. She's
Okay.
great stuff. Because the key with
Yeah.
Anytime Fitness is buy businesses in obscure locations where there's no competition, and then
Uh-huh.
buy dirty businesses on Main Street where you can find great opportunities, really great opportunities to grow the business, to invest in team members, really improve some lives. And I'm going to tell you as well that, I mean, when you own a business, as you all know, insurance, right? Probably paperwork is like this high on the regulation side of things. It's difficult. It actually takes proactive effort not to become more civic minded when one is a business owner. So you can get the autonomy and freedom if you do it right and you take some of the methods in the book and think through it intelligently. You're going to make good money as well, so have that financial freedom. You're going to make some good relationships along the way. I mean, don't get me wrong, people are the biggest source of pain. They're also can be a source of pleasure if you hire the right ones and you believe a good culture, which I know you know a ton about.
Uh-huh.
And I think that you become a better citizen. No one talks about the other two parts of those as much in this process, but I think the freedom is a great starting point. And I've had fun, doing this successfully for 16 years. And I get to teach, because I'm a professor at Case Western, I teach MBAs and stuff, how to do it and everything. And I'll invest in people that go out and get SBA financing and want to bridge that equity gap, right? Throw my money behind the right kind of people. And I do doctoral research on it as well, because I think there's like a good academic gap, given that small business is such an important part of the US economy. There's just not enough academic scrutiny given to it. And then, hey, I also wanted to have fun and write a book on it. So I wrote a book, grititdone.com. It's just 9 steps of how to do this from start to finish, assessment through sale, whole 9 yards from there. And I think it's a great path for everyone to consider going down at the right time. Certainly not for everybody. It's a ton of work. But if you follow the steps outlined and surround yourself with the right people, you can live your American dream. Simple as that.
I like that. I don't know why this is that. I don't know. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. It was perfectly timed.
Perfectly timed.
Yeah, I'm sitting here writing down Grit It Done, and I'm like taking notes. So let's talk about Grit It Done. Let's talk about the book. And kind of discuss a little bit, without giving away the book, obviously, about how practical this book is, the steps within, and what's the purpose. If anyone were to pick this up and say, "Hey, I'm getting this book because of this reason," what's the main reason that someone want to pick it up and the purpose behind it?
Yeah, live your American dream and think about entrepreneurship in a lower risk way, right? I think you're better off buying something as a starting point that already exists through an existing business or through a franchise than you are going out and starting something from scratch. You'll get the freedom, you'll get the autonomy. It's a great situation. And I've been lucky enough to have done that. And I just feel compelled to want to assist and help other people in that process as well.
Yeah.
It's a collaborative space in the ETA, the Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition world. And over the years, people have done, I want to do a call with someone, they will always make the time to talk to me for 30 to 45 minutes, right? And tell me what they know. And I'm always grateful for that. And I will always do the same thing. What I generally find, though, is that individuals, 90% of them that want to go down the route of buying a business, they aren't necessarily ready for the call. So it's not a good use of like their time, not a good use of my time. So now it's like, hey, spend 99 cents through the end of May, buy the book, take you 3 hours to read, then go book a call with me or anyone else that's done this stuff. And then you'll be really prepared to go off and do it. So part of it's like totally a time efficient thing as well. Yeah. And also too, I will tell you that, let's take the average American median wage of $1,118 per week. Let's gross it up to like $70K a year, adding some, value of benefits in there and all that good stuff. Now I tell you that individual is going to be better off if they go out and they find business to buy that's making $400,000 to $500,000 of cash flow of adjusted EBITDA, and they get an SBA loan to buy that business, put some of their own equity into it, or work with someone who wants to bridge the gap with them, friends, family, maybe an investor. I certainly do that if it makes sense. Then I think some base case assumptions, they can go out, make more money while they're running this business than they were making before. We're assuming a lot of SBA debt, which of course is personally guaranteed, so you have to kind of be able to digest that, where failing means you get to read our favorite chapter 11, right? But you can make more money while you operate it. If you pay off your debt in 10 years, you're going to have a pre-tax 7-figure exit. And that's even before you think about growing the business at all. You're making assumptions that you sell it for what you bought it for and that growth is zero. So I'd say you can make more money, you could feel more autonomy. And like we talked about, could have some good relationships out of it, which is what life's all about. And I think you'll become a better citizen. So it's just a no-brainer. Is it a ton of work? Yes. Can it fail? Yes. Do people fail? Yes, for sure. But with that said, I think relative to the alternatives, it is a fantastic way to, live your American dream and feel that freedom. So that's what fires me up about it.
What's the lowest point of entry you think would be like the smallest amount someone would have to come in to get? And it could be it could be a really small business. It doesn't have to be making as much as what you said earlier, but if someone wanted to say, hey, like something with training wheels, almost like I want to get like a business that's like riding a bike with training wheels. What would you say that would be? Like, how much would they have to come in if they couldn't get an SBA loan, or if it is difficult for them to get a large SBA loan to buy that business that's making $500,000 a year or whatever? What would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you asked that. So, go to entrepreneur.com, look at some of the low-cost franchises. Those are certainly wares. But the more unique answer that I'll actually give you is that, there's all kinds of databases and places to go to look at this stuff. But so many things just the ones that really are cool are the ones that happen over the kitchen table, right? I'm actually working with someone right now whose neighbor owns a landscape company. They've known them for years. This landscape company, it's not making millions, it's making a couple $100,000. And landscaping's a good industry to think about doing a roll-up in. And the neighbor knows them, and the neighbor's at that retirement age now. And they are actually working on literally a neighborly deal around buying some guy's landscaping company. Whether the deal goes through or not, I don't know. And there's a lot of seller financing to it and not much money being put down by the buyer and this and that. Literally a neighbor. So when you're thinking about deal sourcing, I always encourage and coach people to think about unique ways to do it, right? A lot of these things happen based on relationships in really interesting ways. So just have your eyes wide open. Now, go to microacquire.com. Great option for low-cost companies there. You can, scrape bizbuysell.com and find some low-cost options there. And those are great. Those are good starting points. But really think about the unique aspect that you have to find the deal that makes the most sense for you. And the other caveat to that is that I'm just a big fan of the saying, if you're not all in, you're in the way. If you want to be an entrepreneurial business owner, a lot of people, want that upside. They want to live their American dream. They want that autonomy, freedom, be a business owner. By the way, question for you, what institution in the US do you think Americans have the most confidence in?
Oh, that's what institution?
Yeah, an institution's kind of a unique way of saying it. I'll give you a hint. You're one of them.
Insurance.
It's business owners, right? So Gallup surveys every year Americans on confidence in institutions, and for the last, don't quote me, number decade-ish, business owners get the highest level of confidence. Number two, which you'll appreciate, armed services, typically.
Okay.
Religion is 32% and Congress is 8% based on the latest ones. You can see how it stack ranks. By the way, pessimistic note, confidence around all institutions is trending down on a pretty linear scale. So talk about the state of our country, but business owners are the highest. When they ask people why they're the highest, there's two things. One, they represent the American dream. People actually quote that. And then secondly, it's the individual, the fact that they own what they do, right? There's that level of accountability that's not seen in other institutions. So we can talk about why small business owners are awesome, but the issue is that a lot of people want the lifestyle, but they don't, they kind of delve into it half in and half out. There's a lot of people that want to buy businesses, so it's critical that if you're going down this route, to come across as all in and to come across as credible to business owners, to intermediaries, to lenders, whole 9 yards. And the ways to do that are outlined in the book. It's a nice nine-step way to think about it, just based on things that I've learned over 16 years, things that I've taught, things that I've observed, all that good stuff. I just believe that lives are improved the more people that go down this route. So I'm always happy to shamelessly promote it.
And so now you help people also through your classes that of students that you're teaching, you help people to go in and do the same exact acquisition process and become entrepreneurs through acquiring current business that are operating.
Yeah, usually I spend my time trying to talk them out of why they shouldn't do it, and I just share my experiences and let them go out there and decide if they want to help themselves in the process and do the hard work to make it happen. But yeah, I try to provide the frameworks and the tools that are useful for me. And ultimately, a lot of people spend a lot of money researching if they should go down this route, whether it be 2 years in an MBA, paying for like an expensive weekend course or, talking to working with a consultant, all of which that stuff I do, by the way, to be crystal clear. But I wrote this book because it is, I will argue, the most efficient first step in this process. Spend 99 cents and then 3 hours to read it. Book a call with me, book a call with someone else, and then decide if you actually want to go down this route. Because the ultimate commodity in life is time, right? So make sure you're doing things in a time and money efficient manner. So I wrote this as just a good entryway. And then after that, figure out what the right step for you is. And really, I tend to think that it's key to find the right people to surround yourself with. So whether it be a group, an incubator that specializes in businesses to buy, or whether it be going to business school, or whether it be creating your own mastermind, or joining something like EO or Promise Partners or incubators that help with this stuff. Surround yourself with the right people that also want to do this while you're searching or figuring out what you want to do, and then ultimately do the same when you're actually operating. And it goes close to my heart because when I was doing my Anytime Fitnesses, I definitely caught some of that lonely owner syndrome. And I just think that you become what we all know based on excellent academic research, that you become like the people you surround yourself with. So if you want to become a business owner, right, hang out with business owners or hang out with people that want to become business owners, and it'll rub off and you'll go from there. So key takeaway, peer groups empower, no reason to go down this route on your own.
Is there any specific, if someone's listening to this and they're wanting to get into entrepreneurship or they're wanting to buy their own business, is there any peer groups or like mentorship groups or anything like that people can join or buy into, kind of like Arte or Apex, of like people that are all like-minded doing the same thing?
There is a ton of them out there. And if you want to get my detailed personal opinions on what makes sense, like book a call and we can talk through it. But the answer is going to be, it is ultimately about which one resonates with you the most. And you have to go out there and check out, do your deep diligence on them, talk to the people that are in them, talk to the ones that did them and aren't happy about why they did them, and just find what that right fit is. Because when you're able to find that right fit, I have seen the rewards be astronomical. But when you're not able to, it's just wasted time essentially. And that just applies to any intermediaries you work with in this space, whether it be a broker, an attorney, an accountant, a coach, the whole 9 yards. Just find what feels right to you. And then I think the rewards can be amazing. And you might get that the first one you try, but you're not going to know that unless you've done diligence on like three or four others, minimum. So take the time to invest in that right peer group. I have ones that I absolutely love that work for me and ones that I run that work for me. I've been parts of ones though where good people, I like them, I even love them to death. Just wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't the right fit for them. So you end up going your separate ways, but find what that right fit is.
Absolutely. What, and all the years that you've been an entrepreneur and all the businesses that you've run, what's the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome that taught you, like, that stuck with you, that taught you the greatest lesson?
Yeah, it's going to be that I don't think of myself as a smart person, but let's say I have my voices in my head, right? And those can be valuable sometimes, but it's critical to get the input of other people when making decisions. You can choose to ignore them completely, but who you surround yourself with, who I surround myself with, will define how the process plays out. So, one example which I can walk through is I was dealing with a key team member issue, and I wanted to go a certain route with it. And I was really emotional about this issue. I wasn't thinking clearly about it because I had invested a lot in this individual, really pushed forward, their life. So I couldn't separate myself from it. And ultimately I got great advice from one of my peer group members that said, listen, Tyleston, you got to get out of your own head and follow your own advice. Grit it done, just go out there, get past it, deal with the hard work, hire the replacements you need to, and get out of your own head. And I would have spent time, feeling bad for myself and thinking about the situation I got myself into. But again, people around me pushed me to do the hard things, end up overcoming the issue. And then this was the time that I was selling the business as well. So closed the deal, sold it, great outcome. But the power of peer groups is absolutely critical. And it goes that way with analyzing opportunities. I have a good framework in the book I call the double diamond of how to analyze acquisition opportunities. It works well for me. I've seen it work well for others. There's a lot of other ones out there you can use. Just go with the one you feel comfortable with. But I don't just run it and tell myself how it looks. I share that scorecard with other people so they can tell me that I'm wrong, or they can push back on those points. We are filled with countless biases, right? We all know that. We all know it consciously, but we still end up following them. Even the people that are experts on biases still have them. So to control for that, make sure that when you're analyzing opportunities, you're surrounding yourself with people that can push you on it and question the assumptions that you're making. Because when you get in the trenches, what you don't discover, or things that you discovered that were wrong, are going to come back to haunt you. So the more you can get diverse perspectives on the front end, the less pain you're going to have on the back end.
I like that. I like that. You're so right. I think that as an entrepreneur, the greatest challenge and obstacle that all of us face is our own thoughts, our own selves, as the things that the doubts, the delay that we put on ourselves, and like saying, I'll do this later, I'll do this later. That's kind of the indecisiveness. There's so many different variables mentally that entrepreneurs have to go through that you kind of got to shut it off, almost like put on blinders, or do a lot of inner self work like I do in order to overcome that, to just be like, hey, I like every day it's just like, hey, if I just do these tasks, if I'm as disciplined and I do these tasks, I can not worry about 99% of everything else of what comes up in my mind, right? And build that momentum very slowly.
100%. And the way that I think about it at this point, only because I'm conditioned to it, I'm here, right? Then I do something hard, take on a challenge that puts me here because it's not always easy to do. But I have complete confidence that I'm going to come out much higher on the other side, right? Yeah. I know that if I do the hard thing now, that elation always awaits on the back end. And where I got that reinforcement from, I don't know, but I have it now. So that's what empowers me to go off and do hard things. And the interesting thing is that when I do them, the real fulfillment almost exclusively comes not from the actual achievement, but it comes from the fact that my mindset is that I'm all into doing it. I'm focused. And somehow, some way, I don't know how this works exactly, I seem to meet really cool people when I'm in that mindset, and I develop these awesome relationships. And you say it in your quote about, if you have that positive attitude on the back end of it, for me, I find that positive attitude when I'm all in and I'm focused doing something hard, then that positive attitude has what I'll call positive emotional contagion, right? It rubs off on other people. And then it's a breeding ground for resonant relationships, which is
absolutely cool. That is incredible that I love how you phrase that. And it's almost as if you attract it when you get in that mode, and then you have that positive attitude and that positive outlook. Sometimes there's these happenstance or like coincidental encounters that you find, that you come across when you're in that mode. And it doesn't just apply with entrepreneurship. I think anything in life, it doesn't matter if you want to be the best baker, if you want to, like I'm doing a bodybuilding competition for my first time this year. It doesn't matter if you want to do that, right? You talked a lot about the physical activities. I'm sure that when you started doing triathlons and Ironmans, that you naturally started to meet people through your research, or just through working out, or all these different things. You started to meet people that were doing the same thing, and you learned from them and you grew from it. And like that same thing's happening to me. And the first time you did your Ironman, it's probably super overwhelming. Like when you first said, I'm going to do this, like you start looking into the training, the regimen, like the equipment, the food you got to eat, the nutrition, all this stuff. And you're like, how can anyone do this? But after you've done it, you throw yourself in, it becomes normalized. And now it's a little bit easier. And then you realize, like you said, you were here, the challenge brought you down to here, you did it, but then when you got done, it expanded you. And so now your normal isn't here, your normal's here. So you look back at like, oh, well, I was down here when I was doing it. Now I'm like right here and I'm doing it.
Yeah, and it creates that positive. It creates that positive feedback loop where now I'm conditioned like an animal to know if I do this hard thing, I'm gonna just feel better afterwards. Yeah. And it's not even about like the accomplishment. I mean, that's great, but it's just like the happy chemicals in my body. Like I just feel better.
The endorphins, what's the other? The endorphins in your it's on the tip of my tongue. But anywho, the happy chemicals that are produced in your body when you do physical exercise, the same exact dopamine, the
Yeah.
same exact things that happen when you're like on your phone and do this. So that's this fake dopamine that you get addicted to, right? But when you do it for physical activity, it actually has a better release. It's a more natural release because it's coming from your actions of going out and doing something difficult. And so you kind of get addicted to like going out and doing difficult things. And you're like, because just like you're saying, you like, I'm going to go do this. And yeah, it's going to suck. But you've gotten used to knowing that like every single time I'm challenged, for me, I'm like, I'm growing. Like good things are happening.
Yeah, and you could and that 100%, and you can frame it as growth. What's interesting to me though is I frame it as just enjoyment. I do something hard and I just enjoy myself afterwards. I'm happier afterwards. I like to use the term elation always awaits. I love doing hard things, but I'm not sadistic. I don't like love pain. I actually love the feeling that comes after that pain, and that's the key. And if you do that in the context of owning a business, right? Or being an insurance agent, even in your case, right? The people that you help train, if you do those hard things that you do not want to do consistently, then in the context of being a business owner, you're going to get yourself to that financial freedom that you really aspire to do. So bottom line is grit it done, do hard things, and then just enjoy the elation afterwards. Of course, then someone's like, well, you success, good to go financially. Why'd you go climb the world's tallest staircase? It's like, when does the pain stop? It's like, well, hey, I enjoy doing that stuff as well. So it's critical. But
here's the secret is that the pain doesn't stop. And there's always going to be pain. Did you decide to put yourself into a challenging / painful / gritty situation, knowing that you're going to get elation on the back end? Or did you decide to not do that and not hit your potential and not push yourself and then be painful in a painful situation later because you don't have money? There's always going to be pain, and that's pain is life. It's like the Buddha says, like to live is to suffer, or as part is like you don't have to suffer, but to live is to have pain. That is part of life, right? And Stoicism is very big on if you introduce something challenging every single day that challenges you, that pushes you, it actually makes you happier, makes you more joyous, right? There's a story I was reading, and it's a story of Hercules where he has two different goddesses that are trying to tempt him, and one goddess is trying to tempt him, she wants him to basically relax, have a good time, drink wine, be with all these beautiful women, all this stuff, and he'll never have to work hard. And then the other goddess's name is Arete. And she is like, no, that doesn't exist. Like, you're not going to have a good time. And the only way you're going to have a good time is if you're challenged, if you truly reach your potential. And so if you follow me, it's going to be difficult. Like the road's going to be hard, and you're going to have a lot of obstacles among the way, but you're going to reach true glory, and you're going to find out what you're worth, and you're going to find out what your purpose is. And obviously we know Hercules chose the path of Arete, right? And so it's like this kind of stuff has been talked about and written about for hundreds, thousands of years, because this is the human condition, right? It's that simple. It's crazy to me that people like it's 2024 and we're still talking about like trying to inspire people to step out of their shell and do things that are difficult for them. Like,
you're
an entrepreneur.
Oh, you got it figured out. Nothing to add to that. What I always tell people too is that, hey, if you figured out a way to make this process of life so easy and not have any suffering or pain, like, let me know. I want to know. Like, let me know. Because I've only found the opposite. It's like I do hard things and then elation awaits afterwards. And I'm either going to, like you said, feel the pain of not having accomplished what I want to accomplish, right? Or feel the pain of doing the hard things necessary to get there. So, yeah,
absolutely.
Could not agree more.
Another quote. I think it's Maslow. Maslow said, "What a man can be, he must be." And so, and what that mean, and what he meant was, whatever our true potential is, at our best, our ultimate version, what we can be, we have to pursue. Because if we don't, If we don't pursue that on a daily basis, if we don't keep pushing ourselves, if we don't go through those challenges, that's the only way that you can get there. That we're going to feel the pain of regret. We're going to that kicks in, and it goes against the 6 basic human needs, or the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It goes against those, and it's going to force you into mental instability, depression, anxiety, things like that, right? And so it's like, now you have the choice, but you have to pick one of those.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And what's interesting is that, entrepreneurial business ownership has been how I've been able to find that fulfillment, right? I do the hard work in the small businesses. I'm able to add value to people's lives, add value to the country, add value to the economy, like push things forward. And that's where I've been able to get that utility. I find so much empowerment in finding that in like the Main Street business world, right? By being an entrepreneurial business owner. And the other interesting thing to go on top of that is, sorry, I forgot what I was saying. The other interesting thing to go on top of that is that I'll let you ask a question. I'll get back to that one. I'm thinking about something.
Okay. No worries. So while you think about that, where, if they want to get, because you says 99 cents, Grit It Done, where do they get it at?
Just go to grititdone.com and click on the link to Amazon. It'll be 99 cents through the end of May.
Yeah.
And then, that's a step to take. I'm active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So if you want to, you can follow me there as well. But first step, grititdone.com, put in your email, you get access to all those tools that I put in the book as well. Nice.
Awesome. And one of the questions I ask all my guests is, you have the opportunity to speak with, break bread with, have a conversation with any 3 individuals in history, alive or deceased. Who are they and why?
First one is I want to have dinner with my father, who's still alive and well, and we have a great relationship. He's like the best kind of guy I am blessed to have in my life. I want to have dinner with him before he met my mom. I want to get a sense of what my dad was like in his younger days. And he wouldn't know that I was getting dinner, that it was his son, and just be like, hey, his name's Fred. Fred, I want you to go out with this individual named Jack. And Jack's a guy, I think you're like a blind date, basically. I want to hang out with my dad before he met my mom way back in the day, just to kind of see what kind of guy he was like. Secondly, Abraham Lincoln. His life was filled with, 99% failure, tragedy, and setbacks, right? The lost elections, the mental breakdown, the failings in business, son dying in the war, getting assassinated. His life was pretty tragic and pretty sad 99% of the time. Yet, President of the United States won the Civil War, united the country, one of the most impactful leaders that our country has ever had. And his life was filled with failure, setbacks, and tragedy. It empowers me to continue to do those hard things, take the setbacks as they come, and just go forward. And the more research that I do about him, the unsupportive partner he had in his life, the fact that he came into the Civil War with like a very compromising mindset of like, hey, guys, we're gonna, guys were in the cancer back then, right? Guys, we're gonna solve this problem. Let's come up with a solution. In the South, it's like, nah, fire on something and go from there. So it's like just everything in his life is just a problem after a problem after a problem. But he persisted and was able to. He was able to be highly impactful and highly successful.
Yeah.
Third person, I want to have dinner with Stallone and just hear the Rocky story.
His story is unique.
Yeah, I mean, first time I heard that, I was like, this is not true. There's no way this story is true. I would just love to have dinner with him and just take in that positive energy and just go from there. Yeah. I don't think that individuals need to, it's not about intelligence. It's just about focus, grit, determination. Anything can be accomplished. And what I was going to say earlier too, when it comes to small business, you talked about how we're talking about the chemicals of the body, right? And how this stuff hasn't really changed in stoicism over time. It's also like that to an extent for some of these these Main Street businesses, right? Yeah. Is that, people that were successful doing certain kinds of industries 30 years ago, those industries haven't necessarily changed a lot in the last, 30 years, and they're probably not going to change a lot in the future. So there's just really unique opportunities to look at industries that aren't always like sexy, they're not always high growth, but they can be highly profitable and they can work and they can provide a good lifestyle as well. So I think it's critical that you don't have to always reinvent things and be, high risk. Go for the lower risk opportunities. Take something that already works, and you can use that just as it is, or build a platform on it. I love the fork, by the way. Literally, the fork that we eat with. It hasn't really changed in, you tell me the number, thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
Is it likely the fork is going to get displaced tomorrow or in a year from now? I don't think so. I think it's got at least the term of a 10-year SBA loan to it, right? So I like things like that. And also, I've read some period academic research about how really the things that are most likely to last into the future are the things that are how long they lasted in the past, right?
Yeah.
So if you have these things that are clearly historically working in the past, they're likely to work in the future. Not everything is that way. Obviously, there are exceptions to it, but I think it's a good general rule, and it's a fantastic rule to follow when thinking about entrepreneurial endeavors going forward.
I love that. And I love the three that you used, especially the reason Sylvester Stallone. That's a great, because the story of Rocky and how he actually came up with the story of Rocky. That's an incredible story. If you guys haven't watched or heard it, go look it up. How Sylvester Stallone came up with the initial movie Rocky, and how persistent he was with being the lead role. It's the most incredible story ever. I actually heard it on a Tony Robbins talk where Tony goes over it. And then I started looking into it more, and I was like, man, he is an incredible individual. So,
and we're only going to know that you actually did that if you come back and comment in a review or something like that about the dog, just the dog. If you get the dog thing, then we know you actually did it. So that's the concrete yes. Listen to it and comment about the dog.
Absolutely, that's a good point. So thank you so much, Reid, for jumping on the podcast and just having this conversation with me. This has been amazing, man. I really appreciate your time and your effort. For everyone watching, do me a favor, go to grititdone.com and go get the book. I'm going to go get that actually right now because I want to read it myself. But it's 99 cents, and you never know the steps that can impact your life in order for you to take that next step and hopefully maybe become an entrepreneur yourself, especially if you're watching this and you're thinking about it, you're on the fence. Aside from that, if you get any value from this, do me a favor, share this content with somebody else that can also get value from it. It takes you 30 to 60 seconds to rate, review, subscribe, or share, but it means the world to both Reid and I that you do that. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, we'll see you.